To continue, I'm happy to introduce Patrick Klingler, CDO Hub Lead at Mercedes-Benz and keynote speaker. He will join us from Germany. Patrick Klingler is a technology enthusiast with a passion for data and artificial intelligence. His goal is to transform companies to data-driven organizations by implementing modern approaches for data architecture, state-of-the-art AI products, and democratizing machine learning as a tool. He started his career at Mercedes-Benz in 2015. Since then, he was responsible for several projects and products around data and AI. Currently, he is heading the Chief Data Officer Hub, which is responsible for data strategy operationalization. As a second profession, he is active as an independent keynote speaker for data and AI. In this course, he spoke at several national and international events and organizations. Today, Patrick prepared a unique presentation on data mesh at practice, how to enable data sharing at scale in enterprises. Patrick, over to you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for this very nice introduction on your end. So as you have wonderfully mentioned, my name is Patrick, and today I'm joining you from Germany. So in my daily business, I'm leading the Chief Data Officer Hub at Mercedes-Benz. But today I'm speaking to you to live my passion as a keynote speaker. And today we have a very nice topic, so very nice learnings for you in the portfolio. We will talk about data mesh at practice. And in the next 30 minutes or so, we will learn about how data mesh can help us to enable data sharing at scale at large enterprises. So this is a very interesting topic, a very future-oriented topic. It will probably approach many practical impediments and issues you are currently observing in your company. So I'm very looking forward to the next 30 minutes and happy to deliver you the most important key learnings today. Before we jump into the actual content, I want to do a small metaphor to show the highlights or to show the value add that data mesh delivers in your day-to-day business. And I want to do this with a situation I think everybody of us is quite familiar with. So just imagine you have a very hard working day. So a lot of complex topics to work on. You had a lot of difficult meetings during the day. And just before you stop working, your body is kind of saying, no, not more. And you get like a terrible headache, right? I think this is a situation that everybody of us is quite familiar with. And it's not a good situation. It's very annoying. And obviously what you want to do is you want to make the headache to go away. And now imagine, thanks God, you have a very nice colleague. And this colleague says, hey, you know what? I've got a very nice medicine. I've got a very good pill. And this pill helps you very well to overcome the headache and to make you to feel better. So the colleague shows up and puts the pills on the table, and what you see is something like this, right? And now you're sitting in front of this massive mountain of pills, and the colleague is saying, okay, I know that within those mesh of pills, there are some that might help you. But unfortunately, I did not have the time for well sorting. So just figure out which one will help. And then I guess your problems will be gone. And obviously, this is not what you wanna have in this situation, right? Because obviously, as you can see, all the pills are not really well structured. So you do not know if two pills look kind of similar, if they actually approach the same kind of symptoms. Also, they are not described at all at this situation. So you do not know which pill is used to fight which kind of symptoms or problems. You do not know who is actually providing the pills. I mean, you do not know, can you actually trust them? You do not know what's in there, the ingredients. You have no idea about the quality of the pill. How do they solve your problem? So it's not something that helps you out in this kind of difficult situation. Instead, what you actually want to have is something like this. right? So you want to have a very nice, well-sorted portfolio of medicine, of pills. So you know exactly which kind of package or box contains which kind of pills. They are well sorted. You can trust them. They are actually also well described in a manual. So you know which kind of symptoms are approached by the pills. You know also the doses, for example, you have to take. You know what is to consider. You know the provider. So you know who is producing and distributing the medicine. You know what's in there. You know the quality, if it's officially approved, and so on and so on. So this would be something that really helps you out in a situation of headache. And actually with data, it's quite similar. And data mesh, if we sum it up in a nutshell, is basically transitioning from the left world, where we have really this unstructured mess of pills, to the right world, where we have really a nice structured and consider those pills as products that really deliver value to their consumers or customers. And of course, we are not talking about medicine the next 30 minutes, but we apply this thinking to data. And in order to understand data mesh a little bit better, and in order to understand how it can help us in the future, we need to understand where we are coming from at large enterprises and where we are as of today. And I think it's worth to spend some minutes to understand the current situation and the current pain points in order to be able to look ahead. And where most of us, most of the big organizations, at least the organizations not natively from the tech industry are coming from, are on the very left-hand side of this slide, right? So from an organizational point of view, the situation, what we observe is usually that we have a very strict separation of business and IT units, right? So there are the business guys sitting in their silos. On the other hand, we have the IT guys sitting in their silos. On IT side, usually we even have a separation of development and operation teams, right? And that's a problem because we have very homogeneous teams. We are very working in silos. There are not real intersections. And we all know that this does not work out well in an agile software development matter. From a data architecture point of view, where most of us are coming from, is from a very classical data warehouse world, where we try to collect data in a very structured way, where we are using very predefined and fixed data schemas. And what we observed in the past is also that this does not scale out well in terms of rising amount of semi-structured and unstructured data. So the good news is that we already mostly left the world on the very left-hand side and transitioned to something which you can see in the middle. So as of today, if we look at the organizational point of view, we see that most of the enterprises are already organized around product teams. So this means we broke up the strict separation between business and IT. Instead, we are working in product teams with end-to-end skills, so really cross-functional skill sets, but also with end-to-end responsibilities. So from an agile manner, you build it, you run it. And that's much more reflecting what we need to have in an agile world where we deliver continuously digital products. From a data architecture point of view, what we also can see is that most of us now are working in data lakes rather than only data warehouses, because of the rising importance of semi-structured and unstructured data, obviously. So data lake just brings much more potential for speeding up the entire data sharing. However, if we just look at the yellow dots a little bit, the data dots, so the data skills, what I also see in many companies is that the data guys somehow are still working in their silos, right? Because data is really an intangible topic. It's for most of the people very difficult to grab and to understand. So as a consequence, they are still working in silos, in isolated teams, and mostly even close to the infrastructure and data platforms close to the data lakes. And now we could say, okay, what's the problem? I mean, we are on a very good way. However, as of today, we even observe some problems in order to scale the data sharing in enterprises. And here I list, I would say, 3 of the most important ones. And number one is what we observe at practice, a lack of incentivization for high quality data sharing of the data provider. And why is this? So in the world as of today, the data provider very often does not see the value add, the purpose of sharing the data, because usually she or he is sharing data via a data lake. And then afterwards, this person is losing control and knowledge about what is actually happening with the data. So you ask really as a data provider, why should I do this? Why should I invest all this money, all those resources in order to provision high quality data on a data lake? So I do not see the incentives. And that's a huge problem as of today. Number two, if we use a data lake, then we might run the risk of decoupling the provider and the consumer. So just imagine on the one hand side of the lake, you have got the provider, and this guy is now just dumping data into the lake. And afterwards, task is done, interest is lost. On the other hand, we have some very smart data guys like data analysts, data scientists, and so on, who try to access the data, who try to understand and analyze the data. However, the problem is that if we decouple provider and the consumer, then they will never be able to reach the right people to ask questions or to address the requests and so on and so on. It's just about an anonymous kind of data treating. I mean, just imagine the pills, right? Somebody just puts all the pills unstructuredly in a bucket. And on the other hand, you are the pill consumer, try to find and consume the right pill. This is nearly impossible. And same thing is with the data lake. Number three, if we look at the organizational perspective, we observe that the central data teams very often become bottlenecks, right? Because if they sit close to the infrastructure, they do not have the domain knowledge in order to understand the data. However, very often they are the only persons who have really the hands-on experience with the data. So they are the addressees of questions related to the data. But on the other hand, if you do not understand the business perspective the data is reflecting, you will never ever be able to really give high quality consulting and support how to treat the data. And also, as you know, those central data teams can never ever scale in the same pace than data sharing scales overall at the company. So we always have a lack of a bottleneck. And now you might say, okay, sounds familiar to me, understand, but what can we do to overcome the situation? And this is exactly where a data mesh comes into the play. A data mesh kind of is a paradigm, I would say. It's firstly described by Jean-Marc Degani in 2019. I would say it's not a new concept that was developed on the greenfield. However, it's more an observation from reality, how modern large-scale tech enterprises work at practice. And data mesh is just an approach to put it in a framework, to write it down, and to make this accessible also to non-tech companies. And this is exactly why I think it's so interesting, even to companies from, I would say, more traditional industries. And on the left-hand side, you can basically see from a very, very high perspective what data mesh is about. And maybe let's focus on the central of this small image, like this small circle. And the big difference now to the old world is that now we are completely organized in end-to-end product teams where data is really inherent part of the product team. So data is super closely related to the entire development of digital products. We really have a complete end-to-end responsibility. And the big difference now is also that data is treated as products. So these product teams are not only taking care about their, let's say, typical applications, their user interfaces, backends, and so on, but they're really considering data as products. They provide data as products to the organization. And if you then connect different kind of data products, this is a situation where we talk about data meshes. Everything is built upon a self-service data infrastructure as a platform. So data mesh does not mean to have a wild-grown data platform infrastructure. It's really about having a competitive data platform, providing storage and compute capabilities, providing data catalogs, API gateways, and so on and so on. And everything is covered by global governance and standards, because we need some common standards to align on, for example, to achieve well data interoperability. And if we try to reach this vision, this paradigm, so how does this help? And basically, as you can see, if we live in a data mesh world, now it becomes really visible what happens with the data. Because if somebody is really dealing with the customer demands, the demands of the customer to use the data, you understand the value which is created by your data products. And this is really a strong intrinsic incentivization in order to provide and share high quality data at scale. And that's a huge difference to the world where we just deal with data lakes and consider data as side products. Number two, if we offer data as products, it's much more easier to find and consume the right data, right? Because we have a well description, so it's optimized findability. You take care of appropriate accessibility via the right interfaces, so it's easier to access. You offer a proper service support. For example, there are data product owners that really are able to answer your questions or take a request seriously in order to continuously develop the products, and so on and so on. And number three, as you can see in the organizational perspective, we do not have central data teams anymore, right? So we do not create those kind of bottlenecks because now the data skills are really integrated into the product teams. And that means the organization can grow in the same pace than the amount of data sharing is growing, basically. And the platform guys and infrastructure guys can really focus on their core competencies, providing a competitive, high quality data infrastructure based on self-service. And if we go a little bit further, you might have the question, this is a very nice vision. So I'm very interested to understand how we can transition towards this. And I want to show you a little bit what it requires to achieve this vision in a mid and long term. And in order to transition towards a data mesh at practice, we need to work in 4 strategic pillars. And number one is actually, it sounds quite simple and straightforward, but it's really the basis for data mesh, because it's achieving a verticalized business architecture. Very often in big organizations, we observe that we still have those monolithic systems that grew over time. So it's really big applications. We have long backlogs and they are not very agile. It's more waterfall approach driven. And this is something we should change. So we should really break up those monolithic systems, split it up into a verticalized product landscape of digital products. They should be nicely decoupled and independent from each other, maybe even based on microservices. And most important, you should really consider the organizational structure. So as I've shown you, please make sure to end up in a product organization with end-to-end skills. And that's, according to my observation, even the bigger change to classical organizations who are more hierarchically organized in silos. Number two, this is something I already was talking about a little bit. Data product thinking is really core of data meshes. And this means we treat data not only as side product anymore, but we put data really at the core of our thinking, and we consider data as one type of digital products. And this means we need data product owners, for example, that really take care on their customer demands and that really are responsible for the data product management in the long run. And afterwards, we do a small deep dive into this one. Number three, you have to establish a data infrastructure as a platform. So I talked about we need storage and compute, we need API gateways, data catalogs, data marketplaces, security architectures, and so on. All this is stuff you have to implement. Please make sure to align on some standards, to really align on a common platform that makes your life much easier, and make sure that dedicated teams work on this kind of topics. And number four, as I've talked about as well, make sure to have global governance and standards. For example, my advice is to give ownership for business objects, and then those business object owners have to define standards, how to, for example, save attributes at databases, and this helps you to make data more interoperable. And now let's have a small look into the second pillar, data product thinking, because data products might be the thing that is quite new for you. And this is kind of what I came up, a definition attached with some hints about what are data products. And to me, a data product is a data asset which is optimized for consumption. And that's really the big difference to regular data, because you really make sure that it's easily consumable. And this means on the one hand side, we have to make sure to target the consumer demands. And that has to be done in a continuous way. So not only once when you create the data product, but really continuously reflecting who are your consumers and what kind of demands do they have to consume the data. Number two, a data product always consists of a set of data, so really operative or analytical business data. It consists of metadata that describes the data product, and also it's attached with code for data processing. For example, in order to clean the data, to do the feature engineering, and so on and so on. And all this kind is part of the data product. It's not only the data itself, it's much more. It's data, metadata, and even the code which you need for the preparation. Also, in terms of governance, we need access and control policies, because if you want to have a compliant data sharing, you have to consider things like GDPR in Europe, for example. And it's very important, for example, to not share PII with everybody in the company. So please make sure to define control policies, and even to have, I would say, a policy engine in your data platform that is able to automatically enforce your defined policies. Also, we need a data product owner, or if it becomes a big data product, an entire data product team with data engineers, data analysts, and so on. We need a life cycle management, so continuous data product development. We need terms of use, so the consumer must be clear what are the regulations if she or he consumes data, and also service level agreements. For example, in order to define what kind of quality will be delivered, what kind of update frequency will be guaranteed. And last but not least, product is only a real product if you have the chance to consume it. So it should be listed on kind of a data marketplace or data catalog, which should be part of your data infrastructure as well. And all this together transforms, I would say, raw data to a data product. And on the next 10 slides, on the next slide, I make it a little bit more visible. So here you can see really graphically illustrated what is a data product. It's really much more than just data. You can see we have input ports. So a data product somehow consumes data, raw data, maybe from a source system. Then we have the core of a data product that really has code and data pipelines to transform the data and prepare the data according to the customer needs. And on the other hand, we have those output ports, so different interfaces like REST APIs, like connection strings or event streams, whatever. And all this is really aligned to the demand of the consumers. And also, as I've talked about, we need some control ports, like we need to make the data products really self-discoverable. So you need to provide metadata to explain the product. It should be easy to understand, even without not much explanation by the provider. You should have a transparent lineage, access control, and so on and so on. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see some quality criteria, which are also described by Jean-Marc Degani. And if you look at those criteria, they are really nice indicators to check if the data product that you deliver to the company is of high quality, or if there is still some room for improvement. And now this was a lot of theory. So I would say maybe let's do a practical real-world example to make it a little bit more tangible and understand what are the problems and how can data mesh and data products help to overcome. And I choose the use case that I think everybody of us can really identify with. It's about an inventory report, because if we are producing some tangible items, we need to count and make sure how much of them do we have, or if you have some warehouses to store production items, we need to have an inventory, obviously. And just imagine we have a global inventory analyst, and this analyst now has the task on a monthly basis or so to collect just the inventory status reports of the entire warehouses all over the world. And let's imagine we have got 3 warehouses, and the first warehouse, we have a local supply chain management intern, and this guy is doing the inventory management in Excel. So she or he does a simple export as CSV file, drops it in the data lake, it's gone, and have fun. Warehouse number 2, there we have a local inventory analyst, and this guy is already a little bit more sophisticated in data usage. So he or she works in a data lake. So he does an export of the data as key file, also drops it in the data lake, and task accomplished. In the first warehouse, we have, let's say, a local controller, so somebody from finance. This guy has some kind of a local ERP system, maybe with proprietary interfaces, and he's able to do a JSON export, also drops it into the data lake. And now we have in the middle this sad, poor global inventory analyst who has a lot of problems, and he's thinking, oh, damn it, where can I find the required data? I really lack a nice description. How can I interpret and match the data? This is super stressful. This is super much work because it's not well described. I do not even know if the data fulfills my required quality, and even worse, I do not know who to contact if I have questions. So in the end of the day, this guy creates some kind of a report, yes, but because of the lack of the data quality and interoperability, these reports are not of high quality. So more or less we can put it in the bin because management is not able to derive good, high quality decisions. So we are not happy in this situation. How can data mesh help us, and how is this different in a data mesh based world? So now let's have a look again. And as you can see now, the first difference is that at all warehouses now we have really data product teams, or at least data product owners who have really part of their job description to take care on data products. And that might really sound simple to you guys, but it's really a game changer, because that means data moves to the focus fields of the people, and it's not just a side effect or a side task, which they do on Friday evenings. And those product teams now create data products based on a common self-serve data infrastructure. So this means all those data products, they fulfill a standardized format and structure, which is aligned. They are aligned with the SLAs. So for example, what about the quality? What about the time of the provisioning? What about the update frequency? They are very well described and provided at the data catalog. So you know exactly what is the, for example, logical and physical data model, what are the interfaces. They are attached with access policies, so you make sure that the right people can see the right parts of the data. And as I've said, they are really provided on a common self-serve data platform. And now the situation for the global inventory analyst changed dramatically, right? Because now she or he is really able to understand the data and the structure, because it's well described in the data catalog. Also, it's easy to interpret and match the data because everything is aligned to the predefined structures. And you really know you can rely on the data quality, because there might be SLAs in place that make sure the data quality is met. And even better, if there's a problem with the data or a question, the inventory analyst really knows who to approach, who is really accountable for the data, and who can help out. And this helps now the global inventory analyst to create high quality global inventory reports where management is able to do very high quality decisions as well. And even better, this guy can consume the data, combine the data, and provide the combined data as a second tier data product back to the rest of the organization. So everybody has full transparency and clearly knows what is the inventory status, and can use this kind of data, for example, to fuel other analytics or AI products. And that's really the difference from the past. If we just have a central data lake in the place and have more or less a wild-grown infrastructure and data sharing, or if we do it in a very structured data mesh approach. And now you might have the question, how do I identify the right kind of data products? And I think there are two ways to do this. And the first one is a top-down approach. And this means you're coming from end-to-end business processes. So you're really analyzing your end-to-end business processes. You identify the information that is flowing through those processes. You make it transparent, you model this. You identify and manage your business objects. For example, you assign clear ownership, you define standards, and then you can really derive the required attributes and the required data points in order to operationalize the processes. And you can finally derive and package those kind of information in data products. So this is really an end-to-end perspective, top-down approach. This is very sustainable because it's really reflecting your core processes. However, if you say, I want to have a more short-term approach, you can also do the bottom-up approach, what I call it. And this is the, I would say, classical way. So it's really about creating transparency about the data you have as a first instance. But then together with the business people, you clearly understand their business problems and you understand how data can help to approach the problems. And you can define use cases, you can define the required data, and then you derive the data product. So this is the classical way how most of the data analysts and data scientists work as of today. However, the difference is that we should not just come up with nice trained machine learning models, but also with a nicely provided self-serve data products. And finally, for the end of my presentation, I quickly want to sum up the most important points and clarify also the most common myths that I see at practice. On the left-hand side, you can see what data mesh is not about. However, most people or a lot of people think it is about. So number one, data mesh does not mean to have a completely decentralized and uncontrolled data and platform architecture. This is something I observe very often. The argument is, hey, we have a data mesh. Everybody can do whatever she or he wants. In the end of the day, we kind of build it together. This is not what data mesh is about. On the other hand, data mesh is about the decentralization of data product responsibility in the business domain. So this is the decentralization part, but everything is based on common standards. We have to be very clear here in order to make sure to combine the data appropriately. Number two, data mesh is not a tool or a technology that you can simply install and then you are done, or that you can simply outsource to external partners. Instead, data mesh is not only technology, it's more about to initiate a cultural change that has also high impact to your organizational structure. So we talked about that we need to have a verticalized business architecture with end-to-end product teams. We need to have a data-centric thinking. All this is very much data culture and requires continuously investments and efforts to reach the target. So please do not have a tool-oriented thinking, and please do not just simply purchase any tool on the market and think you're done. Really, you have to inherently initiate this cultural change, this organizational transformation in the way how to treat data. And number three, data mesh is not only a one-time invest. So you cannot only say, I have one project with a start and a stop date, and then I'm done with data mesh, or that you say, hey, I once provide a data product, then I'm done. Data mesh is really about continuously scoping and providing data products and continuously dealing with consumer demands, because business is changing. Business requirements are continuously changing, and you need to continuously adapt your data products. And this is simply what you do with every other product as well. And if you consume all, or if you consider these kind of aspects, and if you start small but think big, then data mesh is a very nice approach in order to overcome data silos in your organization and to enable data sharing at scale. And for now, I'm done. I want to say thanks a lot for listening. To me, it was a lot of fun. I hope there were some nice learning for you and that it was insightful. If you want to learn more about data and AI, feel also free to join me on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can follow me in order to stay in touch. But for now, I want to say thank you and wish you also a nice rest of the event from my side.